right, we are now going to be transitioning into the next workshop with the one and only Garrett Gravesen. I'm going to bring Garrett up to the stage. You might know him as GG Worldwide. Mr. Worldwide's been to all 197 countries, and we're going to be sharing how to build your personal brand and establish yourself as an authority and get on stage to speak in front of more folks, and how to do that by using AI to identify who we're going to be talking to, how to craft a keynote speech that's going to make you stand out and not just unleash your potential, which we'll get into more here. And then we're going to be showing you how to use Gamma to set up your own speaker kit alongside a framework that we'll be sharing with everyone here that you can go through step by step and see exactly how professional speakers, like actually professional speakers, how they do this to get paid and to get booked on more speaking gigs. But Garrett, we'll get into all of that and more over the next 90 minutes. So excited to have you here with us. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, so excited. You ready to kick this thing off?
Let's rock and roll.
All right, I'm going to share
spotlight
one
on you, and you're going to have the stage, and then throughout this process, guys, we'll be sharing some links. So make sure you're staying tuned in, and engaged. It's going to be an action-packed session. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So my goal is to help clarify your message and get you on stage to speak and get paid for it. So hopefully we're going to do that in 90 minutes with all the tools, techniques, and things that you need to perform on stage for your very first paid speaking gig. But who in the world am I? We're going to play one quick video and then we'll jump in. So let's see if I can get this to work. All right. So if I need to do this, let's play this and see if I can do it. Here we go.
I've spent the past 2 decades traveling to all 197 countries around the world. I've marched with the Penguins and run with the Bulls, but I've also witnessed what the best leaders and companies have done to lead their teams, capture the imagination, and attract attention. I've asked, what rules do they break? What paths do they take? And ultimately, how can we do the same? But it all started with a tuxedo. It was different. It was never supposed to happen. But sometimes the best things in life are like that. I believe that living an amazing life and creating an extraordinary brand starts with having 10 seconds of insane courage. I've asked that question to more than 100,000 leaders around the world. They answer the question and decide, how will we lead our teams remarkably? How will we serve our customers exceptionally? And how will we have the courage to lead our company unexpectedly? Over the last 2 decades, I've studied what the world's best have done, how to live both amazing lives and build incredible brands. And today, I'm going to share with you a process to do that for your company and your employees as well. And it all starts with 10 seconds of insane courage.
All right. So that is what we're going to be going for and shooting for today. But we're going to bring up exactly what in the world I talk about. So I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. Today, a lot of times we're data driven, and data is fantastic. But as we always say, data tells and stories sell. And stories are, I think, light the human soul on fire. Oftentimes we're too afraid to talk about stories, our personal stories, our struggles, our narratives. But as someone who's been speaking in the professional world for the past 2 decades, I firmly believe it's not just the stories that matter, but it's the stories that make people remember why we do what we do. We're going to divide this into 3 parts. One is I'm just going to tell you a story. The second part is we're going to analyze why that story may work or connect or relate, and that you have a story that connects and relates in a very similar way. And I think our goal is to pull that out of you, add some clarity with some of the AI tools that we've developed called the speaker brief, and then take the clarity around the speaker brief and then create a speaker kit for you. I'll explain what goes into that, what goes into a great keynote speech, what companies, event planners, and organizers are looking for. So you can walk out of here in an hour with all the tools that you need to at least get started on the path to giving your first speech on stage and get paid for it. So that's the goal of where we're going, but it's got to start somewhere. And that somewhere for me starts with talking about courageous leadership and one simple idea, which is 40 years and 30 days. My dad was my hero in life, and I love my father. And my whole dream in life, yes, you heard I've been to all the countries, all 197 countries, but I always wanted to travel with my dad and go to one country with him. And when he turned 50, he said it wasn't the right time. There's too much work. And I said, all right, no problem. We'll wait. And the next thing, a decade goes by, and my dad turned 60. And once again, it wasn't the right time, and we never got to travel together, and we didn't get to do it. And I said, Dad, no more excuses. He says, when I retire, and we don't come from money. My dad sold insurance. He was in the insurance business. He said, when I retire, we'll do our father-son trip together. My dad worked in the insurance business for 40 years, and he finally retired. And 30 days later, found out he had stage 4 cancer and 1 year left to live. And oftentimes life is not fair. And I know that's my story and maybe your story or someone that you know or someone that you love, but that's the human story, is oftentimes we wait. And I had moved in with my dad because I was the only caretaker he had. And I remember when the walking turned to a walker and the walker turned to a wheelchair. I remember getting my dad out of bed and going to the bathroom became a big win for the day. And I remember near the end giving him a shave in the mirror so he could still feel confident in who he was. And no one wants to face cancer, especially stage 4 cancer or 1 year left to live. And we had gone through 9 rounds of chemo and 10 rounds of radiation. And instead of going through that last round of chemo, we had a decision to make. And that decision was, my dad and I were not going to go through that last round of chemo, but we were going to come off all of it and do our father-son trip together. And right move, wrong move, who knows? But we decided to do it. And so we decided the most logical thing ever was to go down to Havana, Cuba, and have one incredible weekend together. My dad grew up in the 1960s, and he loved classic cars, and he could never afford any of them. So as soon as we landed in Havana, I got him a 1960 cherry red convertible, and he had a smile on his face the entire time. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, I was actually given a courtside seat beside my best friend and partner in crime to learn about life and love and what truly matters. And we had conversations when we were there, and I got him a straw hat and the biggest, fattest Cuban cigar you can imagine, which is not what the doctor ordered, but it did not matter because this was a father, a son, and a trip we would always have. And near the end of our time in Havana, Cuba, he asked if there were any questions that I had left. And of course there were. I said, can you give me one thing I can hold on to that I can always remember? And my dad said this, do one thing you'd be insanely proud of and do it now. Do one thing you'd be insanely proud of and do it now. And I knew at that moment that I wanted to take that message of doing things now in the moment, saying yes to life, yes to love, yes to adventure, yes to travel, all those things. And I was going to take my dad's journal writings, because every day I journaled about these topics. And I was going to write a book in honor of my dad and share that message with every single person I could all around the world. And what I realized was on our tombstone, we have 2 dates and a dash, right? And no one wants this on their tombstone. He could have done some really cool stuff, but he didn't. And we can't control the day that we're born or the day that we die, only this dash in the middle. And I got hung up on this idea of what will you do with your dash? What will you do with your dash? There was even a famous poem around this idea called The Dash. And so I said, what I would love to do with my dash is teach people about this idea of insane courage. And so I wrote a book called 10 Seconds of Insane Courage. And I decided I was going to take that book and that message all around the world to any single person that would listen, to help them unlock their courage, to help them unleash their potential, and to help them not wait 40 years and then 30 days later and finding out that they may only have a year left to live. Because we're not guaranteed how much time we have. And I had no idea in this process that the book would have gone viral or I would have actually gotten to every country. It was just the simple fact that I saw this firsthand. I saw what happens when we can face fear and overcome fear and do the things that we enjoy, and how you can inspire people with your message, an authentic message that often comes from pain or heartache or happiness or dreaming big. And it was just simply my story. And so I define insane courage as simply this: the leap that defies doubt and changes everything. Again, it's that leap in the moment, those 10 seconds of insane courage where we feel like we should do it, but oftentimes we chicken out or we don't, or we know we should speak up, but we cower and hold back. And my whole dream in life is just to help maybe one person that watches this or one person that listens to this, to take those 10 seconds of insane courage and do something about it. And so I believe that the world's worst business advice are SMART goals. And if you've done anything in business or anything in life, you've probably come across these. And I believe SMART goals are the enemy of doing bold things. I think bold goals need no acronym, because bold goals are the ones that create wonder and make us come alive. And I think that bold goals are the best way to live life. I tell businesses all the time, the best thing you can do is take one of your strategic initiatives next year, next month, next quarter, or tomorrow, and replace your SMART goals with bold goals. So I don't just talk about it. I decided to do it for myself, because people don't rally around SMART goals. They rally around bold goals, get you excited and out of bed. And I realized this: when I did a little bit of research in the history of the world, there are 100 billion people that have ever lived. I had to find that on Google. And of those, there are 300 people that have visited all 197 countries in the world. But the reason I have on a tuxedo on this call today with you is there ended up being one of them who did all of this travel in a traveling tuxedo. But again, it was never supposed to happen. When my dad passed away, I said, what is a bold place or somewhere I could go to kick this thing off? And I had never known anyone to go to Antarctica. And I didn't even know how to get to Antarctica. And I didn't know what you're supposed to do when you get to Antarctica. The only thing I knew they had in Antarctica was penguins. And so I live in Atlanta, Georgia. In order to get to Antarctica, I knew you had to fly through South America, get to the tip of South America, and board a ship for 10 days to go to Antarctica. And so I packed 2 suitcases for the frozen continent. And last minute, a friend said, Garrett, you've got this fun personality. Why don't you bring one tuxedo, stick it in your carry-on just for one photo with the penguins when you get to Antarctica? I said, you know what? Why not? So I packed my 2 suitcases. I brought one backpack with only a tuxedo inside. I checked my luggage. I fly Atlanta to Buenos Aires, Argentina. Buenos Aires all the way down to the tip of Ushuaia, which is the southernmost city in the world. And when I landed, my luggage did not. The only thing I had for the next 10 days in Antarctica was my tuxedo. And so I knew that I was in trouble, and I knew that I had to figure out and do something different. And I knew that this was probably going to become part of my story. And so we can watch and see what happens, but it looked like this. How did it happen? What was I going to do? And I had to make the best of it. And in these moments, you have decisions to make. Are we going to choose courage or comfort, complain or keep going, or find a jacket or freeze? And for me, I realized that I was going to make sure and do the best that I could, given what I had. And so let me show you the rest of this presentation with these penguins. This was me making posters. I had to go to the only post office in Antarctica in my tuxedo. I climbed a glacier in my tuxedo. I was just as confused as the penguins, and the entire time I was there in my tuxedo. But I think sometimes the best things in life happen unexpectedly. And it's what we do in those moments of 10 seconds of insane courage. And I realized from that moment on, I was going to take this tuxedo to every country in the world. Unexpectedly, I didn't plan it. I had no idea. And it eventually became this personal brand and something that broke the ice, no pun intended, to share stories about this 10 seconds of insane courage idea. And it made it to the pyramids of Sudan. Fun fact, they have more pyramids there than the country of Egypt, to the statues of Bali. And I kept going. I lost one in the Blue Lagoon in Iceland. I got one to Mount Everest, which I clearly never climbed, with Mario, Donkey Kong, and a rubber duck in the Bolivian salt flats, with animals all across the world, from mountain gorillas in the Congo to giraffes in Kenya. I kept going with this tuxedo. To the pyramids in Egypt, I lost one tuxedo over the Pacific. Yes, everyone always asks, did you bring the tux to North Korea? We can save those stories for Q&A. But finally, it made it all the way to the final country in the world, which was inside, it's called San Marino, inside Italy. And what I learned is we all have an opportunity to embrace our flaws, embrace our uniqueness, and embrace the stories that life gives us. And oftentimes when I speak on stages, afterwards, people will come up, and it's rarely the fact of going to all the countries in the world, which that may be the unique thing that may get me on stage, but it's actually connecting on the story of my dad, which keeps people connected to me on a one-on-one level. So my guess is you've gone through something, and I've gone through something. And I've spent 20 years trying to figure out, how do you create, connect, and relate with audiences in a genuine, meaningful way based on what life's given you. And so I just want to share 3 quick stories, because I think as we move into the speaker brief, one of the opportunities we're going to have is, what are 2 or 3 unique stories to you that have shaped you and defined you? And we can always back into the lessons learned and how that applies to business or marketing or leadership or AI. But it starts with your personal story. I never stand on stage and tell people exactly where we're going to go. I start with 40 years and 30 days because that's authentic to me. And so today, I simply do this. I help courageous companies foster a culture of courage. And when you have courage, you have better employee engagement. And yes, you reduce your turnover. And yes, you grow your sales. And yes, you do all this. But it started with, what am I passionate about and what's true and authentic to me? And as you hear these 3 stories, I want you to start thinking about, what are the 3 stories that have maybe defined my life? And mine start with Hong Kong, Kenya, and a 6-minute speech. And I just want to share these 3 stories as I'm telling them, these are stories where nothing really went right. And I don't know about you, but when I see people whose life looks perfect and everything worked in their favor, I cannot connect and relate to those people. But if you're willing to dig deep and look at maybe where your life, took a left turn, but you still figured it out, or we're best positioned to help the people we once were. So who were those people? What were we going through? What struggles did we face? And how did we overcome those? We're just looking for 3 unique stories. And at the end of these 3 stories, I just want to show you the power of what I call the social ripple effect. I wish I'd come up with that term, but I did not. But we're going to talk about it and how we can create the clarity around your personal story, leveraging the power of AI and what we've worked together with Darby on from Gen AI University, and how we can put that together into a speech that'll get you on stage and perhaps even paid for the very first time. But 5 questions everyone always asks. Were you rich? Absolutely not. My dad sold insurance and my mom was a secretary. While I was maybe rich in courage, I never was rich in currency. Number 2, did I ever have a job? Yes, I had a job. I started a leadership consulting firm, and we got the opportunity to build out Chick-fil-A Leader Academy. So if you like Chick-fil-A and you like their training, you like your service, we got to play a small part in that 10 years ago. As Sheryl Sandberg famously said, if you're asked to join a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat. We did not. As they grew, we grew, and I got to help write a lot of the leadership curriculum for them. Everyone always asks, so I might as well answer it. What's the best country? I say Italy, top to bottom, I think is probably my favorite country if you were to have me move somewhere immediately. But I think Cape Town, South Africa is my favorite city in the world. Bali is very hard to beat. And the food in Tokyo and all across Japan is probably the best in the planet. Were you ever scared? Again, we can talk about North Korea at the end of this, but perhaps the better idea was I went to the world's largest food festival in Spain, where they have 300,000 pounds of tomatoes. And it's the world's largest food fight, throwing tomatoes at each other. And I had the genius idea of wearing a white tuxedo for the very first time. Horrible idea. And I immediately became enemy number one. And what did I learn? I think I learned this, that life ultimately comes down to 10 seconds of insane courage. And oftentimes the story that we tell both ourselves and others, we all face imposter syndrome. Everyone's facing a fear that we have no idea what they're going through. But I did learn a quote from the founder of Chick-fil-A. He said, "How do you know that someone needs encouragement?" And he pauses and no one knew the answer. And he said, "They're breathing." How do you know someone needs encouragement? They're breathing. And so I would just like to say, wherever you're at today, I hope some of these messages inspire you or spark something inside of you. And I'm just going to give 3 quick stories from Hong Kong, Kenya in a 6-minute speech. And then we'll dive into your story and your clarity and how you can leverage the speaker brief to create a speech for yourself that'll get you on stage, and a speaker kit that you can share that will create gamma. Did I travel when I was young? No. The first time I ever traveled outside the country was because I got a scholarship at the very end of college for first-time travelers to go anywhere in the world. If you have a globe and you put your finger on Atlanta, Georgia, and you spin it around, on the other side of the planet is Hong Kong. That is how I decided with a scholarship where to go for the very first time. I had no idea what I was doing. Hong Kong is huge. It's just like New York City, but on half the space. And I showed up with a backpack, that's me on the left, and a Fortune magazine that I bought at the airport of the 100 best companies to work for. I landed, and my whole strategy was I was going to call these companies and get a job that summer before I graduated. And absolutely nobody wanted me. Nobody. And I called and I got rejected, and I followed up and I got rejected, and absolutely no one cared about what I did or why I was there. And I knew in that moment, I had to have and take my own advice of those 10 seconds of insane courage. So I promised myself that after getting turned down 50, 60, 70 times, that whoever was next on that list, I was going to go into full Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting at that famous scene in the bar, "How do you like them apples?" and just share my truth. And it turned out to be Merrill Lynch in Hong Kong. And the lady, to this day, I'll still remember her name, was Yu Lee. And she picked up, and without even letting her say anything, I just said, "If you give me the next 60 seconds on this phone call, I promise this will be a speech you'll never forget for the rest of your life." And she starts dying laughing. And she just says, "Who is this?" And I jump in and say, "My name's Garrett Gravesen. I found Hong Kong one day on the other side of the globe. I did not go to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Dartmouth, Brown, Columbia, MIT, or Stanford. I went to the University of Georgia. You've probably never heard of it, but that's okay. I was like, all I'm asking is for one coffee and a conversation in person to tell you why I'm here, and I'd love to share with you the rest of my story." And she laughed, and I laughed, and she said, "You may just be in luck." Because one of the people we had hired this summer took a job at a consulting firm. No promises, but I'll meet you for that coffee. And that coffee turned into a conversation. And that conversation got me an interview. And in that interview, because we do not know how life works, the head of equity research for Hong Kong in the middle of Asia ended up going to the University of South Carolina. which is in the southern part of the United States, right near where I went to school, the University of Georgia. We talked about 15 minutes of finance and the rest about SEC football. So now that University of Texas and everyone from Austin is in the SEC, you know how much people are crazy about football. And that's what we talked about by putting myself out there. And what I realized from this guy, he said, in my interview, anyone can be smart, but few have the courage to be bold. Bet on the underdog. And he bet on me. And he was the best boss I ever had. And every day after work, I go to the street market in Hong Kong and I buy a brand new tie. And he noticed it every single day. And on the last day of my time there in Hong Kong, this is what I wore: purple suspenders, a financial tie at Merrill Lynch. Absolutely no one in banking wears that, but I did, and he was okay with it. And he cared about me as a person, and he cared about me as a professional, and he took the time to lean in. And I was so thankful for him at the end of the summer when we had our time going away and I was heading back to the US. And I believe that oftentimes from that moment on for the next 2 decades, that sometimes 10 seconds of insane courage is betting on the underdog. Those with grit, those that are persistent, and those that are bold. And I learned that lesson from him. And earlier this year, I wanted to go back and thank him for what he had done for me. And I once again took out that globe and I flew all the way around the world. And he had no idea what I'd done the last 20 years, but I wanted to thank him. And that was him. And he had no idea that he was even in my book or how much he inspired me. But I wrote about him in my book all these years later. And my message to him was simply this. His name was Brent. I said, 23 years ago, you changed my life. I flew to Hong Kong with no job, no prospects, and no idea what would happen. Everyone at Merrill Lynch went to an Ivy League school, and I went to the University of Georgia. You hired me anyway. My time working at Merrill Lynch in 2001 changed my life, and you gave me that opportunity. For the past 2 decades, I've thought about that, written about that, and spoken about that around the world. Thank you for having those 10 seconds of insane courage to bet on the underdog. And that's something each and every one of us can do, is bet on more underdogs. In those 10 seconds of insane courage, when we're too tired and we don't want to respond to the email, maybe we can. Or someone texts us for advice and we give it. Or they send us that extra message on LinkedIn that goes into that extra box that no one ever checks. Maybe we respond. Because maybe, just maybe, that's the person where you can change their life and you never even know they could change yours 20-something years later as well. That's story number 1. Story number 2 was, instead of flying home from Hong Kong, I told my mom and dad I was going to Africa. They thought I had lost my mind, but instead I told them I was going to Kenya. Because I wanted to do the complete antithesis of big banking and bright lights. I wanted to go volunteer and give back. I'd worked 18 hours a day in Hong Kong. And I wanted to do something with a little bit of money that I earned. And I had no idea how I was going to help or what I was going to do. But I believe in life, there's always the power of one. There's always one person at one moment that can change our life. And you never know who they are. Oftentimes it's very unexpected. And for me, that person was a little guy named Martin. I ended up volunteering at an AIDS orphanage in the middle of Nairobi, Kenya. I knew nothing about the cause or the disease or how I could help. And he was 10 years old. First day I met him, he had a bright orange shirt and big baggy pants and couldn't pronounce my name Garrett or say my name Gravesen. So I had him call me Gigi, my initials. To this day, that's still what my friends call me. My Instagram is Gigi Worldwide. Everyone I know calls me Gigi, because of a little boy at an orphanage in Africa all those years ago. But as we were there meeting on the very first day, we played on the monkey bars and the swing set and the sandbox. And as I'm leaving, he looks me straight in the eye. He tugs the bottom of my shirt. He says, everyone says they'll be back. Will you really come back and see us? And in that moment, I said, yes, of course. Because I believe sometimes 10 seconds of insane courage is staying put and learning more. Is staying put and learning more. It's so easy in life to bounce from one project to the next or one company to the next. It's much harder to stay put and learn more and dive in and dig in. And that's what this little buddy of mine named Martin, who I've gone back to see multiple times since then, taught me. And suddenly days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months. And before I knew it, I was there till the end of the year. And we started an art, sports, and music program for these kids, but he lit something inside of me, made me passionate about this cause and these kids and helping children with HIV and AIDS and their quality of life. And as I was leaving the very last day, again, he gave me a high five and a big bear hug. And he said, I want you to promise that you'll always remember me. And I said, Martin, that's one promise I will keep for the rest of my life. And I came back to the University of Georgia, where I still needed to graduate after all these examples. And the third story is simply this. After being with Martin and staying there and seeing what we could do and the power of getting people involved in these causes with these children, I come back to the University of Georgia after Hong Kong, Kenya, and they gave me an opportunity to give one 6-minute speech, a graduation speech in front of 30,000 people. And I had no idea what that meant, and I had no idea how to do it. And once again, story number 3 is sometimes you're not going to know, and you do it anyways. And so with all those people, I had written a 6-minute speech, which was what the university wanted me to give as the graduation speaker, which was pretty much congratulations, go after it in life, and do the best you can type speech that everyone else gives. Or I could take the time and write another speech about this story and what I'd learned, especially from Martin, and that we all have those one Martins in our life that often change our lives. And when we have those opportunities, are willing to do something about it. That I wanted to start a charity for children in the US and their quality of life, just like Martin. And this was the moment. And I'd written 2 speeches, one that was 6 minutes, one that was not, one that was comfort, one that was courage, one that was in this pocket, one that was in the other. And I stood up on stage in front of all those people, and I pulled out the other speech. And I spoke and I shared and we laughed and we cried, 30,000 people strong. And I talked about this idea of an organization called Hero for Children, helping the quality of life for children with HIV and AIDS, and how together we could all be heroes in life for somebody or something. And at the end, when it was all said and done, the speech lasted 18 minutes and no one complained. Because sometimes 10 seconds of insane courage is speaking up and saying more. In those moments, you're going to have them and I'm going to have them. And there are a few moments in life where you've got the right idea. You've got the right story. You know exactly what you need to do. It's, do we have the opportunity to choose courage over comfort in those moments and take those 10 seconds of insane courage to speak up and say more? Here's what I had no idea was going to happen. And this is the end of the talk. The social ripple effect. I'd never heard of this term. It's conceived in 1988. That a small, simple action can have a big ripple effect across life in many different ways. Starts with one person, you, me, whoever's listening to this or watching, whether it's a recording or live right now, and how we can impact the relationships around us, the communities we live in, society as a whole. In that audience that day was a gentleman who'd been at the University of Georgia for 50 years. He became our first board member and helped us connect with Big Brothers Big Sisters and the CDC and create the first ever mentoring program in America for children with HIV and AIDS. This past year, we just celebrated our 20-year anniversary of Hero for Children. So many of those kids that we worked with are now much older. Because of the people we worked with, I got a chance to work with Chick-fil-A and write leadership curriculum and do service projects with them, which has led to an opportunity to travel around the world finding these. That's how I was able to get paid and travel around the world. Because I traveled around the world, I got a chance to write a book and share those messages. Because of one speech at one time, having a little bit of courage in those 10 seconds. And so whatever you've gone through, whether it be heartache or heartbreak or finding a first job or moving to a foreign country or just sharing your truth in the moment, we've all got stories. And those stories are what connect and relate with audiences. And we can always back into what those lessons are learned and how that can help corporate groups or individual groups or conferences or events. But I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. And our goal today is simply to help bring that clarity to you through what we've created together with Darby, Gen AI. And I just want to give you the courage to share your story, not just the data that you know. Because again, there are a lot of smart people with a lot of great data, but you are one of one, and I am one of one. And our stories need to be told and our stories need to be shared because stories are the ones that change the world. And so, Darby, I'm going to stop right here. And why don't we tell them where we're going to go next and how we can gain some clarity around what they're passionate about, what their stories are, and how together we can tag team this and to help them further. Oh, oh,
Some powerful stuff, Gigi.
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So good. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, where do we go from here? I think where it comes from here is taking that story that each one of us has and each one of us can share to make it impact. And how do we articulate that story? How do we find the words and the language and the message that's going to land and connect with the right audience that we want to get in front of? And then how do we structure it and package it in a way that the right people can see us, can find us, and can understand what makes us different and standing out from a crowd? And you always say, everybody says unleash your potential, but everybody says that. How do we refine and craft something that is going to stand out and is unique to you? And that is our goal for the next 45 minutes or so, is to take the essence, I really, of what you just brought and shared with us, Garrett, and walk through how can we really leverage AI to hone in and focus on the topic that we can create a powerful speech around. And using the AI system that we worked together through the market sauce and the hackathon and what we took several months ago in time and building this out along with the masterclass that we put together with you to enable everyone here that's going through this process in this call to have the tangible speech, whether it's all completely written out right now, but the speech is already inside of all of us. It's just how do we find the words to get it out and then present it in a way that someone just might want to pay us to have us come out and talk and share that story to make an impact on their organization. So with that said, first thing we're going to be walking you guys through is a process of building out a speaker brief, and not to confuse with what we've been sharing inside of the Market Sauce portal, but to clarify that this is a variation on those blueprints that we're already creating for members of the summit that you've already gone through and received. Some of you have already gone through the Market Sauce portal and gotten it. There's a lot of very similar elements here. Why you're going to want to go through this process specifically right now with us is because it's going to unlock the addition that's complementary to the blueprint that is specific to getting you started and going on your speaking career and what to actually do from the mind of Garrett, who's gone through and done this for years. And we extracted that out of him instead of a masterclass. And so we're going to go through the process, answering a few very brief questions, similar to how we did on day one with the Market Sauce portal. But that'll give you the emails and the resources that you can go and refer back to. You can watch the 45-minute masterclass, but we're going to take that blueprint and then we're going to take the blueprint and kind of workshop it through together here and determine, based on what you inputted, based on what was outputted, how do we lock in on a topic? And then how do we give it additional information that we need to share inside of a speaker kit so that people can see what we do, know what we're going to talk about, and want to book us for a speaking gig. And then we're going to build it in Gamma. As we've been practicing with Gamma the last few days, we're going to show you how to go through and put this into action so you can walk away with a speaker kit from this call or from watching the replay on this call, and then go and take the next step, which you can talk about what the traditional speaking world looks like. In this case, traditionally, how we're going to condense the time that it's taking you to put this asset together from a matter of weeks or months to never to just under an hour, ideally. Is there any context around the speaking world that you want to share before we dive in, Garrett, with what this process looks like, just in a little like more specific detail with why this is important if you want to get booked speaking a gig?
Yeah. So again, the speaking world is an industry. So let's just remember that, right? There are people that will consult. There are people that their jobs are to find people that believe they have a story worth sharing, and then they try to monetize off of that. And it's okay. And that makes sense. And if that's your full-time job, then it's probably worth having a coach or an agent or whatever. But you have a speech inside of you. And the typical world is they're going to take about a year and about $10,000 to pull it out of you when you already know it. You just need the clarity around it, right? With AI and the advances with this and what Darby has done beautifully and working together with me, we basically downloaded my brain and said, hey, how can we create some more clarity around the outputs of exactly what an event planner, a conference coordinator is looking for? For example, in my world, right? So I talk about courageous leadership because event planners and organizers, they're not looking for people to unleash their potential, which is what everyone says they talk about, which is okay. Even I did that. So first one to raise my hand, I messed that. It's literally on my book. It's how to unleash your potential, which if I had to go back, I would redo my book. But people are looking for AI speakers, marketing speakers, sales speakers, leadership speakers. And then, okay, in what bucket do we want to fall in? So just knowing that's it. And then, okay, going one step deeper, it's not just leadership. Mine is really anchored on courageous leadership. And then at the end of the day, what problem am I trying to solve? And how do we put some fancy numbers around it? So one of the problems is, oh, I help solve the 8 fear factors. What the hell are the 8 fear factors? We got to come up with them, right? And probably AI is going to help us do that, right? But at least it's, okay, that's now captured my attention. Or you could say my whole journey around the world was really about setting and achieving bold goals. Because to go to every country in the world, you got to set and achieve a bold goal. Companies, they want to do that, right? And they want their employees to set and achieve bold goals. How do we do that? I say, oh, you do it by focusing on the 7 wonders of the world. What the hell is that? We got to figure that out, right? So we can back into these things, or you can say, hey, really my journey around the world was, if it's about courageous leadership, it's what courageous leaders do differently. What do they do differently? They go through pick a number 1 through 10. They go through the 5 zones of courage. What the heck are the 5 zones of courage? We're going to figure that out. So all we're trying to do is say, let's go from unleash your potential to a topic, to a problem that you can solve, and then in a creative way of how you solve it. And normally that would be about a year's worth of work, $10,000 worth of out of your pocket. And we just say, hey, let's eliminate that and try to give you as much value as we can for free at this summit and help you play around with what we're calling the speaker brief, which we created together. And then not only do that, let's get you a speaker kit and show you mine, show you what's in it, use Gamma to create it in real time. And let's get you at least started on this journey without taking a year's time, but having those 10 seconds of insane courage. So let's just all try it right now.
And let's go through the process here. We're going to show it in the time that we have allotted for this, but this is something that you'll be able to rinse and repeat and go back through and refine and iterate and get better at as you go through it again and again. So I'm going to share a few links right now just so you guys have them handy right away. These are going to be what we're going to be referencing throughout this call. I'm going to share the link to the speaker brief, which I'll open up right now, and we'll walk through how to fill it out, and we'll figure out a topic that's going to make sense. I think naturally, if we're just using me as an example, we're going to fall into the AI bucket, but now there's a lot of different AI speakers out there. So how are we going to work through this using some of my unique story and other things that will help with standing out? And so if you head on over to speakerbrief.com, you will gain access to, can you see my screen, Garrett?
Yep,
All
perfect.
right, cool. Get access to this one-page site with a type form that's embedded on it that will effectively trigger the automation and lead you into the masterclass that you'll be able to access for free and go through that course on your own time. But basically what you're going to want to do is enter your information on the first slide. So, Darby Rollins, let's use this email. I'm adding the plus this so that I can just keep track of where I'm opting in from. And I'm going to go on to the next one. The next thing you want to do is select which applies to you. How do you identify as an aspiring speaker, a current speaker coach? I would say entrepreneur, business leader, current speaker, and I don't coach people on speaking specifically. So I'm going to select the things that apply to me. And these are variables that are going to feed into the automation so that the AI and all it's going to be executing is going to be on that. So this is where, again, just like we do with Market Sauce, is how do we focus in and give AI the right context for what we want to talk about? So examples, leadership, marketing, sales, AI, motivation, culture. So under the AI bucket, I was thinking about this while you were talking, Garrett. There's a lot of ways we could go here. We could talk about AI powered market research. We could talk about an AI enabled global workforce, which is what we're going to be talking about in our next session with Howdy. We talk about AI for content creation. And something came out to me is like, what is like the evolution of the AI powered human, right? And so maybe AI powered human could be the general topic for what we could cater a speech around. And I think that might be
exactly. So just
yeah.
think all we're doing is putting, I think it's an adjective in front, right? Or we're adding more context. So
Yeah.
leadership is what they're looking for. But when you see courageous leadership and then you see 10 seconds of insane courage, that's where we're trying to get. So you are correct, Darby. Let's do that. So AI is what someone will be looking for. AI powered humans. Let's just, and again, let's not overcomplicate it. We're just taking a topic and we're adding a few words around it. Let's hit okay.
All right. So now we've got the AI powered human as the topic, but now here's what's unique about you. And yes, you could do more than 32 words, but try to hone in on this if we can, like just as a general rule of thumb going through this. Let's get focused. What different perspective, anything contrarian, unique of what someone else believes? How can this challenge what's oversight? So maybe like I'm thinking about this right now in real time. If I'm thinking about what does the AI powered human mean to me, it's that some people, and maybe let's workshop this a little bit because this is the most important part of getting the best outputs from the speaker brief, is like some people say AI is going to take our humanity away from us. I think it's only going to enable and enhance like the power that's already inside us. So is that an angle that you would say is aligned with how you would approach the unique way? Or is there maybe some coaching or direction that you, just from hearing that, GG?
Yeah. So I would just say what lights you up? Like you love, so again, you love, I'm going to make this up, music, tattoos, travel. I'm like the things that, really light you up. When you come alive, these are not just you, this is for everyone. What are you reading about? What are you passionate about? What are you researching about? Like for me, I'm a nerd. I love like profiles in courage. What makes people courageous? What, like for you, is it your different perspective is you love seeing people leverage AI to speak more, leverage AI to perform more, leverage AI for peak performance, leverage AI for
the word for me is it all comes under creativity, right?
perfect.
It's
Then let's go with
music
that.
or tattoos
Yep.
or anything in those lines. So what makes difference? So when I'm filling this out, what my perspective is, I love helping people
Leverage AI for creativity. And then another trick for public speaking is never say I think, say I believe. So now I believe AI can help all humans. I'm going to make this up. 10x their workforce in 30 days. Like something like I believe that all humans make decisions in 10 seconds. Yeah. I believe that. Or I believe that AI can help boost your creativity by 10x in 30 days. give it something so audacious, or I believe it can, again, we want, because what I was able to do is I believe there are 8 fears humans face. Then we can figure out the 8 fears. I believe that there are 7 ways to set and achieve bold goals. I believe, so what do we believe when it comes to AI and creativity? That, and maybe maybe AI can help find and fuel your personal passions, or find and fuel your creative output. Like, it doesn't have to be, and AI can do it. Yeah. Your creative personal passions. And
a lot, like maybe help you spend more time doing what you love and less time.
perfect. And one of the things about you is you've leveraged AI to write music. You've leveraged AI to create content. You've leveraged AI to give it some stuff. Because if I were to go to a conference and it's like how do you 100x your creativity with AI? Like, I'm sold. I don't even know what that means, but I want to be 100 times more creative, and I don't even know where to start. Just like people want to be courageous, they don't even know the fears they have. They want to set bold goals. They don't even know the wonders that they're thinking about.
Yeah, so like something like this, like helping people leverage AI for creativity. I believe AI can help you find and fuel your creative personal passions, to spend more time doing what you love, less time doing things you hate, by leveraging AI to create, innovate, and augment your creativity 100x than you are right now, even if you don't know where to start.
Perfect.
And so, but within this statement is then you're going to integrate that this is the framework that I use for helping you tap into this sort of thing.
Yep. So again, let's just, before you hit okay, I just want to let the audience know what we started with was AI. What we've gone to is human-powered AI. Now what we've gone to is how to 100x your creativity with AI, right? You see how it's leadership, courageous leadership, 10 seconds of insane courage. So you're following the formula. Again, we're doing this in real time, but that's the way we want to think about this, because now a company who had never known who Darby was is saying, God, we have really got to get a speaker in here, because we have had lackluster performance and no creative ideas for the past 2 years. We're looking for someone to boost our creativity. Oh my God, this guy can help 100x our creativity leveraging AI. I don't know what that means. Let's reach out to him. Boom. First step.
Cool. So that's how we got to this.
Yep.
Would you say this is a good statement to then push on to the next? Or would
yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So now we'll click OK once we have that statement in following that format. And then we have a little bit of additional context here, right? So the prompt is brag about you, your experience of what makes you different. Is this pulling in from your unique experience? I've done this, I've accomplished that. This is like something that I'm pulling, or anyone that's going through this process is pulling.
Yeah, and I would say one is probably a business awesomeness. Like, one is a personal awesome, how you're awesome. And one is like something you've overcome, right? Like, I believe I watched my dad pass away way too young. It inspired me to view life in the framework of fear versus courage. And I ended up writing a book about it, right? Like, yeah, it can pull from the internet, my job and my LinkedIn and all this stuff. But what about you drives you? So maybe you could say, yes, I founded an AI, company. I've read 100 books on creativity. I'm making this up. So like this one book changed my life. And I would love to leverage the power of Seth Godin's Purple Cow mark. I'm making it up in the moment.
So maybe one example, like I started this after helping people get through and write their own books. After I did that myself, I was back in several years ago, and now am using AI to create and produce songs that align with your own personal goals to do X, Y, or Z, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and I would be so definitive. Like, I, as Garrett, believe courage is the cornerstone of great companies. You believe, I believe creativity is the cornerstone of a beautiful life, of a exciting life, of a worthy, like, your whole idea is, if we're going to anchor on this, leveraging AI to 100x your creativity.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easiest way for you to get on stage, get paid before January 1st. because someone is looking to solve that problem with their audience, with their company, with their team. And you are, just like I'm saying, courage is the answer. It happens in 10 seconds of insane courage. I help courageous companies foster a culture of courage. And yes, it employee engagement reduces turnover, like down the line, but that's the snappy thing that you've got, and you nailed it.
Like something like this. So I believe AI is the cornerstone to every human's ability to unlock and 100x your creativity.
100%. Yep.
Cool. So we'll lock this in there, click submit. And so what's happening now for all of you going through this process is the automation is working. There's a video here that is going to share a little bit about the masterclass that we discussed. We're obviously not going to go through the whole masterclass, but this is 100% free. It's part of this process. It's what we put this together for you. When you click access now, all it's going to do, and we built a course out of it. So I'll just say Darby. Oh, that's, let me see, .com. And I'll just say Darby. Once you do this, obviously there's no credit card required to go through the checkout. But what this is going to do is it'll get you activated onto the portal, assuming that everything is going to work fine here. So I'm going to say log in. I'll set a password. So I'll add the password. And so now we'll have access to this library. And we'll walk through this for a few minutes because the automation is off and running. And I'm just double checking. We got the lead submission form, and I see a few of your submissions coming in as well. In the chat, keep an eye on your emails, and let me know in the chat if when your document's coming through. You should receive 2 emails about this. But this is what the course is going to be. And frankly, this is just you can click start your masterclass, and we've got a total of 26 videos. I think it's about 45 minutes in total time. And each one of these videos is going to walk through. And why don't you just tell them real quickly, Garrett, what like the 411 of what someone can expect going through this, and what's like the outcome of going through this mini series?
Yeah, so it's just going to give you more insight into how to frame up a speech, right? Everything from Winston Churchill's 5 parts, which is start strong, vivid imagery, simple language, create stories, and end on emotion, and then how to do that, to how you prepare your speaker kit, to what you should charge for a first time on stage getting this going, to how do you overcome imposter syndrome. Just let me, being bare knuckled and drug across glass for 20 years, not knowing how to do it either, be your guide of you've got this, you've got a story. You don't need to pay anyone outside expert at this point $10,000 for 1 year's time. You can leverage this tool and go deeper with us if you're interested, but it gives you everything you need to know about the world of public speaking behind the curtain and how it actually works.
Awesome. Yeah. And I obviously went through this a few times and us putting it together, and it's just great in terms of how you're delivering the content. It's right to the point. This is not a fluff-filled course, guys, but if you have any interest at all in becoming a professional speaker and you're just getting started, this is going to help save a lot of time and just even where to look for the rubber to meet the road on that front. While the automation is cooking right now, I'm thinking through what we just talked about, the AI powered human, leveraging AI to 100x your creativity. And like, how the heck do you do that? In my head, I have a few ideas for how that process would happen, and knowing that we can get to that point and use AI to flesh that out, but I don't need to have the entire speech fleshed out just right now. What I need is the different elements of this speech, of the kit that we're going to start building out, so that whenever our blueprint's ready, we can optimize that with the content that we're going to be using to create. And so I gave you guys the Gigi's speaker kit recipe, and I gave you, I'm not sharing my screen right now, so let me go back here. So you guys have 2 examples, and obviously I don't have an example of the first kit that you sent me, but this is one of your more recent kits, I believe, Gigi. Prefacing maybe some context that this is,
this is, it's almost unfair. There's a couple of things. One, I spent a ton of money to get this right. I had a professional designer do it. I have been doing this for 20 years. This should just be oh, that's what goes in it, not, screw it. Like, how am I going to, like, the only thing that matters is let's get the framework of what goes in it. Here's the other great news. You don't have to have your speech written out at all to send this. The first step is they want to know that you even know what a speaker kit is. Fantastic. We do. We're talking about here today. It's literally from the beginning. Hey, here's who I am. Here's the one thing I talk about, right? So 100x. So Darby's be Darby addresses one common challenge. How to 100x your creativity. Great.
Real quick before we get into that, you guys have seen what this looks like, but we built the whole frame. I took this and I had AI help with reversing the framework to make it clear on what we're talking about here. And these are basically the elements that you need in it, right?
Yes.
You need to make a good first visual impression, defining your target audience, a compelling bio, concise and powerful overview of the speech, description, testimonials for credibility, evidence of your thought leadership. If you've got any sort of recognition on any stage, even if you only talked once at your old high school, right? Like anything.
Doesn't matter. You could talk once at your old high school at a dinner party one time. You stood up and gave a toast. Doesn't matter. We're using it.
And so basically this is going to walk through how you would build a 10-pager of something like this. And so you can build towards something like this. And we gave it with examples here. And so basically what I would be like, when looking at something like this, I'm going to copy and paste this, but then what I'm going to do is just to work through this process while we're getting that market sauce cooking, and it's cooked and it's here. So perfect. So I just got my email, and in my email, I now have a speaker blueprint. So we can see my topic, the AI powered human, and then we got the first part right here. And some of this, again, may look familiar if you've gone through market sauce. All these elements are still required for knowing who your audience is going to be, which is why Garrett and I started working together to craft this for people that want to be speaking and use this as a way to align the language that we're going to be using. And so we can scan through here, Gigi, with me.
Yep.
We've got our speaker blueprint on the topic of AI powered speaker. Demographic, I speak to entrepreneurs and business leaders, writers and creative professionals, educational institutions. What do they need? What do they want? And this is all informing me about, okay, this is how I can position myself when I'm talking to these folks. What are they looking for in the first place? They're overwhelmed. They want practical applications in their work and creative blocks. So the primary goal here, enhancing of creativity through AI. And so,
right. And somebody is looking for that specifically. And then what they don't know that they're looking for is those words that the speaker brief, they may be searching for creative boost. They may be searching for productivity. And you can put that in your speaker kit, like these topics. So same thing. And then you can even talk about industries you speak to, entrepreneurs, entrepreneur organizations, blah, 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 all that stuff. So this is a plug and play that we can leverage both for yourself and your speaker kit.
Yeah, and so there's a few parts here, right? There's one, there's the framework that you need to fill out. And then two, there's the words that are going to go into that framework. And then there's all the additional statistics and things that obviously AI doesn't know about me if I need to fill a spot out. But before getting hung up on, I need to go and find all the stats and I need to go, I'll do this thing. My approach to this is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to download a copy of the 10-page breakdown with the prompts. And then I have already downloaded my speaker blueprint prepared for me. Next thing I'm going to do is open up a ChatGPT tab and simply attach both of these into my ChatGPT. And now is going to come the prompt, right? The instruction, now that it understands some context, but I need to tell ChatGPT what what to look for right here and what I want to see from it. Okay, so I'm going to use my voice dictation, and I'll probably share this prompt with you guys after the fact, just if it'll be helpful, but I'm simply asking for what I want right here. I want you to reference Gigi's speaker kit recipe for the framework for me creating a speaker kit, using that as a reference point, for example, but reference the speaker blueprint prepared for Darby Rollins as the context for the speech that I'm going to be filling out the content with it. So what I want you to do is first understand the context of this and all 10 pages that are going to be needed based on what we've given you with the framework for Gigi's speaker kit recipe. And then once you've done that, I want you to then integrate and recreate a version of that specifically for me, Darby Rollins, filling it out in a way that my primary topic and the primary goal of who I'm going to be presenting myself to is aligned and speaks directly to my ideal target audience. Do not reference Gigi or anything about his business in my speaker kit for the output. Just use that for your own reference point to know where to fill out the proper information using the blueprint that I have provided. Please confirm that you understand what I'm telling you and provide an outline for how you will approach this before you proceed to the full content creation. And I want to stop it from just going and creating this right now, because sometimes if it doesn't understand this context right out the gate, I can muddy up some of my context in this thread. So I'm just going to tell it what I'm looking for, make sure that it knows that this is my approach. So what is the outline approach? Review the framework, customize the content for each page, target prompts right here, integrate, cover page, audience, signature topics. Say, all right, fine. That's perfect. Now I want you to go through for each page and create every single section of Darby's speaker kit with the context from his blueprint that we've provided to you. Just going to drop this. All right, cool. I see a few of these emails. I can't send this as a prompt, so I'll give this to you guys later. But let's lock in here, right? We got about 20 minutes, right? If we're staying inside of this 90-minute mark, I want to be respectful of your time as well. Gigi, if you have any time to roll over, just let me know, and we can maybe take some time for questions. But here we go. Page 1, the hero and the cover. And remember, this is where a human in the loop is critical, because if page 1 was talking about something ridiculous or something that's not what I wanted, if it's not the hero or cover, all the rest of the content's more than likely not going to be in line. But we're on the same track. Headline: Unleashing Creativity with AI, Redefine Human Potential in the Digital Age. Power title combination: AI expert, innovator, speaker, right? Hero headshot requirements. Opening statement: empowering creators and business leaders to harness AI for unparalleled creativity and productivity. And so, I haven't seen necessarily, and so three key stats, right? 7 continents, like that. That's obviously a Gigi thing, but I don't want to get hung up on that, because I can just add my own stats in here, and that's fine. This is a first draft. We're getting past the blank page here, but I don't like that it's taking the world traveler to AI advocate necessarily for a lot of this. And so I might want it to actually refine this just a little bit more. I'm going to give it one other shot. It just did one. I don't really like this one too much. I'm going to tell it to just try again. Let's do another round, ChatGPT. It's not going to get upset at me. AI creativity expert. Powering creators to unlock new levels of creativity and productivity with AI. Obviously, again, some of these stats, I didn't provide it with this information, but so it's pulling some of it from that front. So just keep that in mind as you guys are going through this. But I like this: from creative blocks to breakthrough innovation, discover how Darby empowers creators to redefine possibilities with AI. Right? And we talked about 100xing yourself too. And so what I'm actually going to do here is I want to keep this in line. Program details. Now we give it a little bit more context. And maybe, I don't know if like 100xing is something here that you would recommend adding in, or something that's really going to stand out, because I don't think actually this didn't include, see, here's where we're missing something. It took this reference point here from me. So here's how I can take this. I would say, actually, I don't want that.
Yep.
I'm gonna make a copy of this real quick, because it took the blueprint as my context, but then there was a note from you, Garrett. And so it took your note as being context related to me, which just it clearly isn't the case. If I say here's, I help humans enhance their creativity by leveraging AI, right?
Period. And end it. And now that's the frame that everything else falls through.
So now I'm going to re-download this. I'm going to jump back into ChatGPT, I'm going to reattach this file. And I'm going to say, all right, you're on a good track, but some context was a little out of line from the first one. I just deleted that context and re-uploaded the blueprint with the specific point. Now I want you to re-execute the framework for my speaker kit with this new context in mind for Darby. And so now, again, and I wouldn't say this isn't necessarily like a garbage in, garbage out scenario. It's just context is so critical here when you're providing and telling AI to look at a specific point, that the data that we're giving it needs the better the data that we're putting here is just only going to help its refinement of the process. So now it has the context of 100x in creativity. It didn't have that before. Even though I knew it, it wasn't relayed into the blueprint. So 100 extra creativity, the AI powered advantage with Darby Rollins.
That's damn good. That's really good.
And so inspired over whatever, like I could change this number to something else related to how we've helped. Like we could find a number that's going to make sense here, but I'm not going to get hung up on that right now. But I want to see discover how he empowers AIs to push beyond traditional limits, merging creativity with the power of AI. Traditional creative struggles to exponential growth. I like the contrast here. You go from this to that. Like, how are we going to help those spearheading workshops, keynotes, one-on-ones, envisioning a world where creator has the tools to 100x their ideas and achieve unparalleled innovation through AI, which is like as big and like grandiose as that sounds. If someone's not even considering how to use AI in something that can help them be more creative, it's not unreasonable to think that you could help somebody literally 100x their creativity if they'd never even tried to be creative before, or if they've never even considered how these tools can have an exponential effect on what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I see some people haven't gotten an email just yet. If you guys haven't gotten an email, I'm trying to think of the best way to reach out to me. The best way, honestly, would be connecting with me inside of Circle if you're going through this. So make sure you're inside of the community. That way that we can loop in our team and make sure that you're getting, that we're making sure that optimization is getting squared away for you. Now we have signature topics, right? So this thing's on track now. This has given us the topics, the goals, the sections, everything we need, and everything we need with 15 minutes left to basically wrap this up inside of Gamma and make it a full presentation that at least I'm 80% of the way there and I could spend a little bit more time cleaning it up. And I have my website right here, the tailored kit, XYZ. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this right here. I'm going to copy my content here. And now I'm going to jump into Gamma. Now I'm inside Gamma. I've got a new folder set up for Darby Speaker Kit. I'm going to select Create New. I'm going to paste in my text. I'm going to paste in that text right here. And I could do presentation, but I want to just be able to put this on a domain and send people to it. You know what I'm actually going to do before I do that? Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to open up the domain I've already got because, like I mentioned before in a couple different sessions throughout here, is that I set up my own personal brand on a Gamma. So I took my domain that I hadn't done anything with for 7 years. It's just been sitting there. and I linked it up with Gamma. And so we just got off the Gamma session as well, where they showed us how to use the website. So
Nice.
here, now I've got my personal brand website that I built this all of the things here. This is one page, but the question I had was like, okay, how do I make a second page in Gamma? Quite simply, I can go select the page up here, click add page, let AI help you make the page. And where are we at? We're right back to this. So I'm going to say one page site. Now, you know what I'm going to do? Let me see. Because what we could do is make a separate page and then copy it over into here. And that's one way that we could take this. I want to see if I can get a prompt, blank page from scratch. So now I have a new page here. Let me see. Just I'm gonna do it a page setup. trying to figure out how I would give it that same exact prompt that we were going to go through. But alternatively, I'll just make a new page in Site and then I'll copy it all over here, like Gamma showed me how. Page setup, take outline. No. Oh, that was offline. 1 second. Rename page setup, preview. Just for the purposes of this, so we don't get hung up on adding the second page here, that's always something we can transfer back over to that. I'm going to go back to how I was going to show you initially. So we can show you how to make a one pager. This can be a standalone site that we can send somebody just immediately and no other problems about it. And as time would have it, let's say someone said, I need a speaker kit from you, Darby, by 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday. This gig's going to pay $100,000 for a 5-minute speech. I'm just kidding. I don't think that's how, I don't think anyone's going to, I don't know. I'm not going to say that, but maybe not right now. But let's say we want to make a web page or something along those lines. So if we click continue, I've added in that space. And what you can see, because it's had the H1 settings here, it actually broke it up in individual cards, which is what I want to have each of these as separate cards at separate sections, just like you had your image, GG. I'm going to preserve the content for the most part. Let me see, condense. We can always come back and regenerate from right here. Condense, presentable. If it's preserved, it's going to keep a lot of the original text. Concise and presentable. Medium. AI images, image style. I'll just leave it and let it do what it's going to do. So it's 11 total cards. Now I can go into Gamma and select the number of themes. Let's pick a cool theme. I have the themes from my own personal brand that would actually make the most sense to build it in, because that is where the website I would transfer these slides to once I've created them, so that I can host them on my own personal branded site. So I can select the theme that I've already customized, and then I'm going to click generate. And now we're letting Gamma do its magic and start to generate each of the individual slides or the individual sections of my page right here. So we got speaker kit, AI-driven creativity framework, unlock your creative potential with Darby Rollins' AI-powered framework, explore innovative solutions that transform your ideas into reality. On the point, 100x creativity, the AI-powered advantage. It's using the same language that we created here, the AI innovator, 100x, inspiring over, and these are all easily editable once I'm inside of Gamma. Personal brand story, you can adjust these images if we want to. Signature topics, humanizing creativity in the AI era. And like you said, you don't even have to have your speech ready, but people need to know that you have this stuff and that you do talk on it. You can almost pre-sell yourself to make the speech, and then
not even you can. You definitely can pre-sell yourself.
Yeah, okay.
100% you can. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like the audience and impact, primary audience, event types, audience size, keynotes 500 plus, success metrics, significant increase in creative output post-session, measures through post-event surveys and testimonial collections, right? I could link back to people I've used AI to help come with a board game side hustle that is help people have new creative ideas and X, Y, or Z. Like there's things that I can pull from to add in here that I know could bolster the sales argument. But now the formats here, so like program format, workshops, custom, client results, creative workflow transformation, boosting productivity, testimonials. You find a few testimonials, we can add those in here. Media and recognition. Could maybe link back to some other podcasts you've been on, so people, or maybe even if I had interviews on creativity on YouTube, I could add YouTube hub links in here, which we know we can do in Gamma. And booking logistics, contact methods, you link people back to here. If I wanted to set up a type form, people to contact me, I could set up a type form and embed a type form, something like that. And then ready to unleash your exponential creativity, book Darby to show how to amplify your impact for AI-driven innovation. Process, contact through here. And at this point, even when we're talking about going back to the early days of us generating books with AI, right? Your first draft is not necessarily going to be the final draft that you create. This is getting us through that blank page, through that hurdle of knowing what we're going to talk about, who we're going to talk about it to, and how we can structure that talk that's going to line up. And what we did was you just took this blueprint, removed the extra context, added our unique, like the thing that we're going to uniquely talk about, and then lined it up with the 10-page framework that Gigi provided based on his speaker brief, so that we know we're covering all of our bases in this gamma. And now I can go back, take a step back, relax, and then I can come back in a second session and put the finishing touches on it. And they say with, you don't want to be editing on your first draft. You want to let the creativity come out. And so even if this is a multi-part session, this gives me a lot. Like I didn't even have this idea for a speech in the first place, but I'm like, oh wow, that would be a really cool session if I could put something together and speak to an audience that helps them achieve a result like this. You know, we're a lot further than just getting started to get something like this at that point. And then if I'm ready to publish this, which will speed up how we would even approach this process, how would we finish this process up? We would do the final edits here, right? Probably spend another, if I had 30 minutes to an hour more time to wrap this up and do it over the shoulder, we could totally knock the rest of this out and make it look like a sweet site. And I'll probably wrap this up over the course of the next few days after the summit to show, hey, this is what we can deliver on here. But now, again, just in a matter of truly a matter of minutes, we've got something that you can share with somebody that asks, hey, can you send me your speaker kit? It's like, by golly gee whiz, yes, sir, I can. And here you go. And again, there's a number of other ways and routes that you guys could go to approach Gamma. You could use other tools, certainly. But I think the power here lies in, one, is answering those questions that are going to help make your speech unique and different than just unleash your potential or something else that everybody else is saying, adding in your own secret sauce, your own unique perspective, and then lining it up with the proper framework so that any professional event coordinator, someone that's booking events for whoever that is, that they know that, this person has something put together. And probably the more refined and well put together this ends up over time, is going to have that, like, oh wow, this is even better, right? Then this looks cool. Like they're going to align your brand with how this is presented. I would certainly not recommend people just like rush through this and put something sloppy out there, but you can get something out very quickly that's going to look good in something like Gamma, and then get the feedback and build from there, right? If you don't book your first one with your first kit that you send out, okay, don't let that stop you. Let's keep the ball rolling. Let's get out. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep refining. And like, you're a testament to doing this for years and years, as long as you're being consistent with it. And you're going to continue to open up opportunities and create those chance encounters that you talk about so much, Gigi.
Absolutely. And again, this was 90 minutes ago. None of us knew each other. 90 minutes later, we went through a whole speech, backstory, 3 parts of a story. We all have 3 stories inside of us. Now there's a speakerbrief.com. Now you got an email. Now, like, you just learned about Gamma probably less than 5 hours ago. This stuff can happen fast, right? It's just, I just want to say, yeah, thank you to Darby. Thank you for putting together this conference. Thank you to the sponsors for giving me a chance to speak at the conference. We'll just end by saying this. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing, that you face some problem that someone else is facing right now. And if we have the courage, maybe even the 10 seconds of insane courage to put ourselves out there, I think that's when the best stuff in life happens. So thanks for letting me be a part of it. Hope we added lots of value and value moving forward as well, because you've got all the links and the websites, and I'm always available. And Darby's got all my contact info, and you can follow me or reach out to me however the best I can help serve.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gigi. And thank you everybody for being here live with us on the session, as well as catching the replays wherever you're at that point. I just hope everyone walks away with this at least inspired to know that you do have that story inside of you. And there's a structure and a framework now with AI that can help you with getting that story out, refining the topic, and getting it presentable in a way that can help you, potentially land that first speaking gig that much faster. So thank you so much, Garrett. And go ahead and transition now into the last 30-minute break between us and the end of day 2, which is going to be capped off with a keynote presentation by Jacqueline and her co-founder, Frank, from Howdy.com, who is one of our platinum sponsors alongside Gamma. They're going to be sharing how they are approaching the world of AI and training and enabling an AI powered workforce. Howdy hires and trains and recruits top talent from all over the world. They help other businesses scale with that talent. And in our session coming up in just 30 minutes, they're going to be sharing their vision and how they're going to be leveraging AI and training people on AI and other things that they're going to be sharing around their approach to just how can people stand out in the workforce and leverage these tools to be that much more effective and enabled with these tools to add more value to the businesses that they are working in and training teams and entire organizations. AI is here to stay. It's important that we're integrating and enabling our teams to be AI enabled so that we can just continue to power our workforces and our organizations. And with that said, we got about 30 minutes left. We've been on back to backs for the past few hours. I think now's a good time to take a 15-minute break, and we'll hop back in about 10 minutes before, 10, 15 minutes before the top of the hour to join Jacqueline and her co-founder for the last keynote of the day. You're going to want to stay on for this and join us for the remainder of day two. And then we'll wrap things up from there and move on to the last day of the summit. So thank you all for tuning in and being with us here live throughout today's sessions. And we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back here for the final keynote of the day.